Today we're going to be installing a tin ceiling. As you can see, ceiling on the patio is looking pretty dingy. It's just drywall. The paint's been chipping off and all the seams are coming apart. So we're going to solve that today. The tin ceiling. These are tin and they've been made up to look like copper. Copper's super expensive, so these are just kind of a faux copper, but they are tin. That should match pretty well with the penny bar top that we got going here. So first thing we need to do is clear off the ceiling. That ceiling fan needs to come down. And then you need something to attach the copper pieces to, or tin. So we're gonna put up fir strips all the way around the perimeter and then every 2 feet, because these are 2x2s. So all around the perimeter of the patio, and our starting edge is gonna be here. So every 2 feet running this way, we're gonna have fir strips. The rafters run across the patio like this. The fir strips will attach to the rafters like that. So they'll go every 2 feet. This is just shy of 12 feet across. So this tile on this side up against the house is gonna be a little bit short, so we'll have to cut those. And then these will be a little bit short also. The reason I'm doing it that way, I wanted to be able to see full tiles as you're looking from the house. That's the view we'll see it from most. You can start from the center of the ceiling and work your way out, but I like the idea of full tiles over here and then working our way this way. So the first strips will be held up with these screws here. Go right into the rafters. So once that grid is up, then we'll start working on the tiles. The tiles are going to be held up mostly with, so I'm going to do decorative copper coated nails in each corner. So that's what you'll see. And then on the seams that are covered up, I'm just going to use a brad nailer and nail through the copper into the fir strips just to give it some extra strength. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing that fan and then start laying out the grid for the fir strips. So taking down the fan, pretty straightforward. Always a good idea to take pictures on how the wiring was, just in case you don't remember when everything's going back together. So I'm gonna get this disconnected and take this fan down. Here's some things you're gonna need. Speed square, knife, just for opening boxes and stuff. This is a pretty cool knife, super sharp. Shout out to my brother Richard, got that for me for my birthday last year. Shaped like a fish, that's pretty cool. Chalk line, cordless brad nailer, cordless drill, cordless saw, the screws I'm gonna use, nails for the brad nailer, hammer, shout out to my buddy Joe who got that for me. Tape measure, gonna need that a lot. Screwdriver just because. Stud finder will come in handy for finding those rafters. Pencil, make your marks of course, and just a couple squares to keep everything good. And here in Arizona, you're gonna need a swamp cooler. It's hot today, so not required everywhere, but it'll work well here. So what I've done here is I've marked each location of the rafter, those little tick marks. Right now I'm working by myself, so I want to lay chalk on the ceiling. Just put a nail in the ceiling. I'm going to hook the chalk line to it, run to the other side and snap it. They're kind of faint, but you can see I've already done a couple. Works pretty well. Definitely easier if you've got somebody else working with you, but for the time being this works. Okay, rafter chalk lines are done. I don't know if you can see that. Pretty faint, but that's all I need to be able to tell where to screw the furring strips to. I did the rafter chalk lines before I did any perimeter fir strips because I'm going to establish the rest of the fir strips off of that initial one. So we'll put one right up against here and then every 2 feet across the ceiling. And then I'll do those chalk lines after I get that done. Here's something I was hoping I didn't have to do. I was just gonna go right through the furring strips, but they're splitting, so I'm gonna have to pilot the furring strips as I go. This one was fine, but this one did split. So I'm just gonna pilot just a little hole through the fur strips. Something cool, I was at Lowe's today. Something I wish they would have done a long time ago. I always hate when you got your bits and your, or your like screw bits and your drill bits, and you can't tell which case is which. They made it clear now, so you can actually see before you open what case you're grabbing. Thought that was pretty cool, so I picked those up today. Nice new set of drill bits. Okay, so I ran into a little bit of an issue. I want both ends of the furring strip to be supported by a rafter. And if you butt them up, you can't really get a good bite on the furring strip. So what I've done is I've drawn a line where the rafter intersects this board. And I'm gonna take my speed square and I'm gonna make a 45-degree cut through the center of that. So one board can have a screw here on the rafter, and then the other board that meets up to it can have a screw on the back of it. Take and cut a line. And then we'll zip that off, and then the next piece that joins up with it will be an opposite 45, and then I can get screws in to the rafter so the ends are supported. Slight progress report. We got the exterior fur strips. We're starting on the lengthwise fur strips. We got the chalk lines up, so the fur strips will go along those chalk lines. And it's also break time. All right, all the fur strips are up. This looks a little odd here. This is gonna be at an intersection of a couple panels. So I wanted to give some support on either side. I had to cut a little relief there. I'm actually gonna put the fan up before I do the tiles, because if I lower that bracket down, that fan's gonna be a little too low. So the top of that fan bracket's actually gonna be sunken into the copper panel. Reinstalled some small fur strips in each corner so I can rehang my outdoor speakers. There's some support behind there. It's a good amount of work. I'm working for a while. It is now approaching 100 degrees here in the shade. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit and get back at it tomorrow. Okay, it's the next morning. A little change of plans this morning. Got our first tile up, and noticed that this could bow up if this block wasn't here, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it once all the tiles were hung. So I've got my lovely assistant helping me. We ripped down all these boards to just about a foot. It just gives a little support in there and another spot to nail to. I think that'll work out pretty well. This first tile is really important on how you get it aligned. I've got a chalk line that I'm gonna line everything up on this side and then work back that way. So that kind of establishes the rest of the tiles. These walls aren't square and they're stucco, so they bow a little bit. So just account for that. There's more of a gap here than there will be there, but I'm gonna do molding around the edges. So that will be covered up. So we're gonna get to hanging some tiles, and we'll check back in a little bit. Got about half the tiles up. It's looking really nice. It's a little tedious trying to get all the seams lined up and everything. So here's the recess on that fan I was talking about. I was gonna try to use tin snips, but I wasn't really happy with the way the cuts were coming out. So I got a 6-inch hole saw, kind of a beast. Be careful using that, but it worked out really well. that hole actually ended up on a seam, so about half. It's about a 3-inch, half of a 3-inch, and a half of a 3-inch there to make the 6-inch round on there. It turned out pretty good though. I might trim it out in some way just to fill some of the gaps, but it's really looking nice. The pattern we chose kind of lends itself to not really know that this is cut. So really I only had to cut one of these squares off of the end over here. So you really can't even tell that anything's been cut. So it's working out really nice. I worked for a few hours this morning. Took a pretty hefty break in the middle of the day, had some stuff to do. Got back at it this evening. And we're down to one last row. Gaps I need to tighten up. I'll do that with decorative nails. Pretty easy. And you can't really even tell they're there. There's one right there. They blend in really well. But I think it turned out very nice. So we'll finish it up tomorrow. Here's the finished product. I think it came out pretty darn cool. I got all the material at American Tin Ceilings if you'd like to try it out yourself. There it is.